Today, we're going to talk about toxins in our food. This is the third part in a four-part series. So thank you to the butts and seats that are here. Thank you to all of our Zoomers online. And of course, the people after the fact on YouTube, thank you for watching these videos. We always keep our contact info up in these videos, right here in our classroom, because we always want you to know we want to hear from you. Whether it's a call or an email, follow or subscribe on Instagram and YouTube, we want to hear from you. Let's talk toxins. This workshop is such a bummer. It's got many names. Drew ruins drive-thru. Drew cancels candy. Drew flunks flour. Drew reminds me for 30 consecutive minutes that our food is rubbish. Sad but true. This comes up a lot around Halloween. I often hear clients say, but I ate a lot of candy when I was a kid. Why can't my kids have that much candy nowadays? And it's because it's different. When you look at a Kit Kat from 40 or 50 years ago, the ingredient list was 7 ingredients long. Look at a Kit Kat nowadays, it's more than a dozen ingredients. Okay? And that's across all these different candies. We could list all of them. They all have these additional ingredients. And these additional ingredients are non-nutritive. They don't provide us any nutritional value. So what I'm going to be critical of today are things that are added to our food that are not technically food. Does that make sense? Therefore, they have no business being in food. All right, nobody calls this class any of those things, but it does feel that way during some parts of this presentation. There are a lot of chemicals added to food that work miracles, like keeping many people from experiencing hunger. That is a humanitarian chemical action. This presentation in no way slanders those efforts related to saving lives. Let me be clear. One of the things we're going to harp on today is preservatives in food. But if we're using a non-nutritive preservative to make sure we can ship food to starving people around the world where they don't have food, I'm not going to be critical of that. I'm on board with that. That makes sense? When I was at university, we had a fundraiser to buy peanut butter because it was stable to be shipped over to Africa where there were starving people. I'm not going to be critical of a peanut butter with a preservative added to it that's feeding people who are starving to death. This is different. Okay, good. Today we are discussing the chemicals added to our foods for texture or flavor, for color and shape. These chemicals are often used to cover up poor quality ingredients, spoiled ingredients, and a food product that lacks appeal. Because fresh, high-quality food doesn't need color added to it, doesn't need anything added to it to enhance flavor or texture. It's already good. Let's start with a list of ingredients that I want you to know. No need to memorize this list. Just set it out while you look up ingredients of your common foods or your constant foods on the internet. Each non-desirable ingredient I'm going to talk about has a reference. We have that reference list available upon request. So you can see this isn't opinion-based, this is research-based. And I want to go back just one more step. If you have foods that you're regularly buying for your home that have multiple ingredients, have this list out. Just jump on the internet and look up the label of that food. Every company is required by law to disclose what's in their foods, and then you can see if any of the things in this workshop are in those foods. So you don't have to go to the grocery store for 6 hours reading all these labels. You don't have to go to Target for 4 hours reading these labels, and you may be going to Target for 4 hours anyways. Just saying. Just saying. All right, the first one I want to point out is artificial dyes. Where is it? These colors up here. They are linked to behavioral issues. There's a bunch of different names for them. Red number 3, red number 40, yellow 5 and 6, blue 1 and 2, and green 3. There's multiple studies showing that especially with children, when they took in these artificial colors, they had more behavioral issues. There was one study where they took the red coloring, and it was all the same ingredients in the food. One group got red number 3. The other group, they used beet powder to turn the food red. And then they measured attention span for 2 hours after eating those foods. And the group that got the beet powder colored food had less attention span issues than the red number 3 group. So it wasn't anything else inside of the food. The only thing that changed was the coloring source. On the topic of colors, there's all sorts of ways to color things. You can use purple sweet potato powder to turn things purple. I mentioned beets to turn things red. You can use blueberry powder to turn things blue. You can extract the part of the blueberry or the beet or the sweet potato that's purple that colors the food so that it doesn't change the flavor of the food. So these are just cheaper alternatives when we're talking about these artificial dyes compared to natural options that are available. Aspartame is the next one, and this is a sweetener. It affects the metabolism of hormones, and it's also been linked to heart disease. I'm really big about that hormone part, and I want to clarify when we talk about, oh, I didn't even put sweeteners up there. Let's do that first. When we talk about hormones all the time with clients, it's not just about, is your body making hormones? We need our body to make hormones, and then we need our body to balance them. Our liver does a lot of that work. We also need our body to metabolize them. So when it's done with the hormones, it processes them, and then the hormone is handled. It's all wrapped up. So with these sweeteners, there's all sorts of natural sweeteners that are nutritive. Honey, maple syrup. Those two have calories. So a lot of people get worked up about that. We could put coconut sugar on this list also. We could put Rapadura on here, which is a higher quality cane sugar. We could also put sucanat on here. Now, all of those have calories, so if people are saying, but the benefit of aspartame is that it has no calories, so I can have my quote-unquote diet product. Then what you want to look for is stevia or monk fruit extract if you do not like the taste of stevia, which is pretty common actually. It's a little bit licorice-like. Some people really like it. A lot of people don't like it. So with these sweeteners, instead of messing with the way our body processes hormones or messing with our heart health, that's a pretty long list of ways we can sweeten up products without messing with our health. So again, these junk sweeteners are not mandatory. There's better alternatives, just like with the food coloring. Yeah.
What about just cane sugar? Cane sugar or whatever else, like agave or anything?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. When we see cane sugar on a label, that can legally be 7 or 8 versions of cane sugar, and some of them have been over-processed. When we see the words Rapadura or Sucanat, those are cane sugar, but it's declaring what level of processing the cane sugar has received. Does that make sense? I really like to bake with Rapadura. I think it makes bakery stuff like cookies and muffins taste better. And it's, oh, okay. When you go to the grocery store and you get to the aisle where there's the maple syrup and the honey and the white sugar, it's usually either at the very bottom or the very top. You'll see a bag. It looks like brown sugar, Rapadura or Sucanat. Sucanat is slightly lighter in color. It's slightly more processed than the Rapadura. They're both way better than if you just get cane sugar. Because again, if it just says cane sugar, that could mean a couple of different things. Yeah. Agave is linked to some blood sugar spiking that doesn't happen with things like honey or maple syrup. So I'm inclined to recommend honey and maple syrup before agave because then we're not dealing with as much blood sugar change. All right, the next one, we get into some funky words. I'm going to give you the abbreviations because these are often what's listed on the packaging. First one is BHA. Stands for butylated hydroxyanisole. It's a preservative. It's usually used in cured meats, so a lot of lunch meats, and some different beef jerky products or meat stick products. falls under the heading of preservatives. And this one is a possible carcinogen. You're going to hear me say possible a whole bunch because the studying on this stuff is pretty limited. We would want to see a lot more studies to confirm that it is in fact a carcinogen, but it has been linked to different types of cancer. Part of the reason it bothers me is we can use citrus as a natural preservative. We can use different flowers like rose extract or rose hips as a natural preservative. These things are naturally rich in ascorbic acid, which is part of what vitamin C is, and it is a natural preservative. It has no harmful effect on the body. We've probably all heard that they kept limes on the ships that sailors were on hundreds of years ago to prevent scurvy, and the limes wouldn't spoil out at sea. It's because the citrus naturally contains so much ascorbic acid that it's a preservative, so there was no spoiling. So we don't need to have a possible carcinogen to preserve our foods because we could use citrus or rose hips. And roses, if you've ever seen wild roses grow, they grow quite quickly. It's very regenerative. It's easy to do. The next one is BHT. That's butylated hydroxytoluene. It's often used in cereals. It's just a variation on BHA, and it's another possible carcinogen. It really bothers me because you can make cereals without this stuff. Whether you make them at home because you grind up your own ingredients, use a food processor, or you can just look for brands, which I'm going to get into at the end of this, that don't use this junk. We do have a list of brands that we really like for different foods. We love sharing it with people because these companies are taking more time and lowering their profit margin to make sure we get good food. So we're going to support them. Next one, this one hits close to home with me because this actually messed with my health quite a bit. And it's called BVO, brominated vegetable oil. Brominated as in bromine, which if you look at the periodic table of elements is in the same column as things like chlorine and fluorine, neither of which we like. And sadly, it's also in the same column as iodine. So I want to talk about this because this is where it messed with my health. Inside of the human body, there are receptor sites. There's spots for nutrient to go into. Let's say it's these squares. And usually your body would really like for this square to be filled with iodine. And iodine fits in there just right. It's beautiful, okay? That receptor site, that square, was designed for iodine to fit right inside of it. If the body doesn't have enough iodine, and bromine, like what's found in brominated vegetable oil, shows up, bromine is actually slightly smaller than iodine, so it'll also fit into that receptor site. The body goes, you know what? I really don't like having voids. I don't like having empty spaces. And because I'm not getting iodine, but I do have this bromine, I'm just going to throw that bromine in there. But the problem is, bromine does not have the same chemical action in the body as iodine. It doesn't help the functioning of your thyroid or your breast tissue or your gonads or your intestines or your spleen the way iodine helps all those areas. But the body does not like having a void. It does not want that empty space, so it will pull in the bromine. Here's the Drew story. Long, long ago, 15, 16, 17 years ago, I started to take a supplement called Organically Bound Minerals. It's made by Standard Process. It's made out of kelp and alfalfa, two foods, both rich in iodine. And I remember I took one tablet of it, and within a few hours, I lost my voice. It was insane. I went to work the next day and I was working at a register, and I actually opened up a word processing document on the screen and put the font to 60 because I couldn't talk. And I typed to every customer that came in, "Hi, I feel great, but I lost my voice." They're like, "Oh, you're ill." And I was like, "I'm not ill. I feel great. This thing isn't working." Okay. And all day I typed messages to clients. As I got through the day, my nose started to run a little bit, and neon yellow, I don't have a highlighter here, but neon yellow started to pour out of my nose. It was insane. It literally looked like someone was wiping highlighter on the tissues I was using. Okay? Went on all day. I didn't realize it was the iodine in the organically bound minerals. So I kept taking my organically bound minerals. Took one with lunch. Didn't think anything of it. More yellow came out of my nose. Still didn't have a voice. Took another organically bound with dinner. Couldn't talk all night. My wife was concerned. Go to work the next day. Still don't have a voice. Haven't figured out the connection yet. Keep taking my iodine, the organically bound minerals. And around midday, I start looking up organically bound minerals. What is it good for? What is it rich in? I mentioned iodine. And some link in my search showed iodine to help remove toxic bromine from your body. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I clicked the link. They said bromine is commonly used in food and beverages that are yellow in color. The body will store it if there's an absence or lack of iodine. Growing up, always been an athlete, my favorite Gatorade flavor was Citrus Cooler, which no longer exists, just for the record. I'm just dating myself. And it was yellow. And when I looked up how they turned it yellow, bromine was involved. So when I started to take adequate iodine, my body went, hey, you never had this iodine before, but you gave us plenty of bromine from all that Citrus Cooler you drink at basketball, soccer, karate, etc. So we soaked that up. Here's the good news about the brominated everything, the vegetable oil, all this stuff. When you give your body iodine, it will happily remove the bromine from that spot, squeaky, squeaky, and throw the iodine that you're taking in there where it belongs. That makes sense? Yeah. I haven't had a yellow beverage since. Learned my lesson. The brominated vegetable oil means it's a vegetable oil that bromine has been added to, and it's a flavor stabilizer in drinks. They're using such junk flavoring ingredients that they need to add something to stabilize those ingredients. Think about how poor quality this is. We don't have to add BVO to a fresh apple you pluck off a tree because that flavor is stable. Nature has handled that, right? Grass-fed beef, you don't need to add BVO to it because it's stable. The flavors are good because it was a healthy animal that you got the steak from. It interferes with the use of iodine, like I mentioned, by the thyroid and neurological tissues. So avoid it. Next one is corn syrup. There's all sorts of different varieties of this. It's used as a sweetener. It's used as a thickener. So it'll help with the texture. It's very addictive. It causes quite a spike in blood sugar, which for a lot of people gets them basically high. They get high from it. Not high like if you did a lot of hard drugs or something like that, but especially with kiddos, that quick lift is very exciting to their little nervous systems, and then they crave more of that food because their body goes, hey, that high feeling happened right after the Kit Kat. Let's have another Kit Kat. Other forms of sugar, like these ones, don't do that same quick lift, even in pretty strong doses. Corn syrup messes with your metabolism because it does such a quick lift to the blood sugar and it causes such a crash. It's very stressful on our metabolism. Before we go to the back page, questions on the first page? Yeah, good.
With BHA, or you just mentioned like cured meats.
Yeah.
There is some stuff out there now, lunch meats that say no nitrates or stuff like that, or grass-fed, uncured, all beef hot dogs. Will be trusted, or?
I love the words you just listed. So when we're looking at lunch meats or hot dogs or turkey bacon, and it says no nitrates, no nitrites, uncured. If it's a beef thing, it's grass-fed. If it's turkey bacon, it's free range, all that stuff. All important words. And there may still be BHA or BHT in the ingredient list.
Okay.
That answer your question?
Yes. But so if it doesn't have BHA or BHT, is it okay to eat?
Yeah, when it's uncured, no nitrate, no nitrite.
And no BHA or BHT.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Really good question. Other
Because
questions?
yeah, I think I've heard a lot about lunch meat lately or something, and carcinogen and all that stuff. But it's really only if it's just like these added things to it. If it
Right.
has all those good words, it's an okay protein source.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Because then it's just like, well, what am I supposed to eat?
Exactly.
Everything has something wrong with it.
Are you mentioning the study that said the nitrates were linked to colon cancer?
I think I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah. And that's actually a pretty old study, but it's getting some press nowadays.
Sure.
And what we have to look at, and it's a big part of the work that we do here actually, is looking at the studies for the details. The devil is in the details, so to speak, because the lunch meats that they used in the study were nitrates, higher intake of lunch meats was linked to colon cancer. They didn't declare which brand of lunch meats they were using. So if it's a brand of lunch meats that is adding nitrates and nitrites for flavoring purposes instead of using real salts or real seasonings like thyme or rosemary, well, there are some lunch meat companies that are using real ingredients. There are some that are not. So in that study, they're using junk ingredients. That's not all lunch meats.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's what are some good and some bad. So that's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I don't follow government stuff very closely, but has there been government regulation now against some of the food dyes?
Yeah, they're starting to crack down on that.
Right.
So regardless of opinion of political party or individual people, to see that there is some degree of attention on these ingredients warms my heart. You don't have to like the people or the party, right? But at least we're getting people thinking about this where they're going, wait, there's a pretty good sized group of people upset about these food colors. Let me look at this. Even if that's the whole thought, good. We just planted the seed. We'll just step back and let it grow. Yeah. Other questions on the front page? Yeah, cool. We'll keep going. MSG. This one is a little bit of a hot button. So we're going to talk about it. MSG stands for monosodium glutamate. But boy, does it have a lot of names. And this stuff is linked to headaches and digestive upsets. I've also had a couple of clients over the years report that when they stopped eating MSG, they stopped having gout. It's a very small group. It's only about 4 people. Just want to point that out, though, that I've seen that one firsthand. MSG can legally be listed as MSG monosodium glutamate, hydrolyzed protein, autolyzed yeast, yeast extract, maltodextrin, natural flavors, that's a big one, glutamic acid, soy protein isolate, because you can isolate MSG from soy protein, but you don't legally have to say that's the only part of the soy protein you isolated. So some people think soy protein isolate in the ingredient list means, oh, this has added protein. Good, my nutritionist said I'm supposed to get 20 to 30 grams a meal. This isn't helping that goal. It can be called modified food starch, sodium caseinate, or textured protein. What a generic description. Textured protein. That's like you go to a car dealership to buy a new car and you say, my budget's $30,000. They say, great, here are your car keys. Give me your $30,000. You say, well, what car am I getting? They're like, a red one. I need more details than the color of the car. I know color is important, but I need more details than that. What kind of protein am I getting? Textured. It's not cutting it, okay? The part where MSG is a little bit of a hot button thing is some of the reports, I'll call it on, and it's not a study, it's nothing scientific, were basically just to bash different ethnicities that were using MSG as a flavoring ingredient. And they were saying that there was a conspiracy theory about why these groups were using MSG to flavor things as a way to weaken Americans, a whole big thing. I've never had anybody show me any evidence of this. It was all just theory. I'm into conspiracy. I'm not into conspiracy theory. If you have evidence, it's conspiracy. Until I see evidence, it's just a theory, and I'm not into it. That's MSG. PFAs, these are forever chemicals. These never break down. They are in the lining of the microwave popcorn bags. So not the exterior of the bag. This is touching your food. It's in fast food wrappers. That was one of the first things when I heard that. I was like, great, that's going to make it a lot easier for me to avoid fast food forever. Uh, it's in pizza boxes. That one bums me out because I like a good za. It's in Teflon pans, which we spoke about in our other toxins, the kitchen edition toxins workshop. It's in grease resistant containers and plates and napkins. So when I say grease resistant containers, I mean to go boxes. The companies that are using non-coated containers or the metal containers, it's better. And then some coffee filters and even some tea bags have these forever chemicals in them. So with tea bags, look for paper tea bags or loose leaf tea. There's quite a few metal tea leaf strainers that are dishwasher safe. And it's really easy to take your loose leaf tea, dump it in the metal strainer, and then use your dishwasher to clean that. It's really easy.
Shout out to Rishi, maybe. That's a little sachet that they use.
Yeah.
It's not PFA ridden.
Love it. Yeah, so Rishi Tea, which is Milwaukee local.
Tea bag. That's a safe way to go.
Yeah, their tea bags are PFA free. Yeah. And then coffee filters, the companies that are aware of how many chemicals are added to coffee filters proudly label chemical free. They're often the brown filters because they aren't even bleached to change their appearance. Because your coffee filter doesn't have to be a certain color to work right. Okay. That's true of like all this stuff with the colors. It'll still taste like grape, whether or not it's purple. It'll taste like fruit punch, whether or not it's red. Okay. All right, the next one, potassium bromate. This is another bromine source. It's often found in flowers, all sorts of different flowers. So please look at those labels because even some organic flowers have potassium bromate added to it. So this goes back to the lunch meat thing. There are certain keywords we're looking for on the label. And even if it says organic, we still want to flip it over and look at all the ingredients because you can make all sorts of nasty stuff organically. It's a possible carcinogen, and potassium bromate messes with use of iodine in the body, which definitely affects the thyroid, affects the brain, can affect breast tissue, gonads, that means testicles and ovaries, depending upon your gender, all sorts of other tissues in the body, skin, spleen, etc. This one, propyl gallate. It's a preservative. It's found in vegetable oils, one of the reasons I don't recommend vegetable oils, and a lot of different meat products. It's even found in some chewing gums. It has been linked to asthma and hyperactivity. And part of what bothers me about it is because it's found in three things that kids are constantly consuming, I really don't like the idea of something linked to breathing problems being given to a small human. When all that body tissue is developing, we want as few roadblocks in the way as possible. With adults, we got different rules because our tissues are developed and more stable, but especially with the kiddos, things like propyl gallate are very disruptive to the way their body is forming. Propylparaben, we spoke about this in the beauty products toxins workshop that we did. It's used in quite a few different shampoos and lotions. It's also used in some pastries and even some tortillas. That's because it's a stabilizer. It's going to keep it on the shelf for longer. And it's been linked to reproductive issues. We go quite in depth into that in the beauty care toxins workshop. That's already posted on YouTube. And with all these things I'm referencing, the video is on YouTube. And if you want the handout, here's our email address. Shoot us an email. Next one is sodium benzoate. This is another very common preservative. We'll see it in carbonated drinks, especially energy drinks. We'll see it in different fruit juices. Again, that one bothers me because we're giving those to kids. Salad dressings. There I go, trying to eat something healthy and getting messed with. Oh, and my Zoomers, I'm going to lose you in 5. I'll miss you till I see you again. It is, oh yeah. And when you mix sodium benzoate with ascorbic acid, it forms benzene, which is a different chemical that's really not good for us. Sodium benzoate has been associated with blood cancer. As a person married to an expert who works in the field of blood cancer, I'm going to go ahead and recommend you avoid it. Okay. I'm not the expert on blood cancer. I live with one. Yeah. Sodium nitrite, thank you for bringing it up before, because it's a meat preservative. It's been linked to colon cancer. They use it in place of salt. Sea salt is good salt, and it is not that expensive. Think about how hard these companies are cutting corners and cutting quality if they're using nitrates and nitrites instead of sea salt. And then titanium dioxide. This is a coloring agent. It whitens things. I see it a lot in beauty care products. I see it in deodorants, lotions, conditioners. It's also used in some foods, again, for the sake of appearance, often because they're not using high quality ingredients and the appearance doesn't look so good, but they go, hey, I can mix some of these chemicals in, and all of a sudden this looks much better. It's been linked to damage for our DNA. DNA is the plans for our body, gives our body the roadmap for how it should function. I really don't want to mess with that. I don't want to damage that. Before we go into a more in-depth thing on sweeteners, questions coming to mind?
Is there a difference between sodium nitrite and sodium nitrate?
Very good question. The difference between sodium nitrite and nitrate is how the nitrogen, that's what the nite part of it, NIT, is presented. They're both bad. They're both linked to colon cancer. They're both junk salt flavoring additives. Yeah. We want to avoid both of them. Some of them do naturally occur in different foods, but the amount is dramatically less. So when you eat a grass-fed steak, there are some nitrates in that. But the amount compared to a junk hot dog, even though the steak is larger, it's a fraction. So that amount I'm not worried about. What's the ingredient in wine that gives the headaches? Yeah, nitrates. There's naturally occurring ones in grapes, but some companies add nitrates and nitrites to their wine because the wine doesn't taste good. So they're adding these things to change the flavor because they didn't do a good job growing the grapes, processing the grapes, etc. Yeah. So you'll see, sorry, it's not nitrates, it's sulfites. That's what it is. Sulfates, sulfites. Sulfur is the base of sulfates and sulfites. There's good versions and there's junk versions. Some cheap vineyards, low quality vineyards, are adding these things because they didn't make a good wine in the first place.
And with the propyl gallate with
Yeah.
vegetable oil, so is that like synonymous? Because even if, like, yeah, so if you see vegetable oil as an ingredient, you just assume
Yeah. Yeah. The propyl gallate is involved in the production of vegetable oils. There's quite a bit of trouble with veggie oils and margarine. If you look up the process of creating margarine, you see, depending on the brand, it is 50 to 65-ish steps to turn it from butter into margarine. And during those steps, it'll interact with all sorts of different things like nickel and bromine to turn it from butter into margarine. But legally, they don't have to tell you that they used nickel to turn your butter into margarine because the amount left in the margarine at the end is a trace amount. And it's legal to have a trace amount. The issue is if you eat a trace amount of poison every day, you accumulate poison in your body. That makes sense? This is not like the Princess Bride. Do we know this reference? Where he pours out the wine to trick him and switches the cups. One of these is poison, one of these isn't. And the trick is it's all poison. He's just built up a tolerance to it. That doesn't happen with nickel. That's not how this works. If you don't know that reference to the Princess Bride, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sticking to avocado oil, coconut oil.
Yep.
Oils.
Yeah, they're good oils. So coconut oil, there's a lot of good avocado oil companies. I really like Primal Kitchen for the avocado oil. I like Primal Kitchen for everything they do. Mark Sisson, the guy who started that company, is one of those good humans that's out there. Coconut oil, avocado oil. I like olive oil. Lately, it's been olive oil from Spain that's been testing really well. There's less corruption in Spain than there is in Italy within the olive oil industry, apparently. And butter, of course, butter. Tallow, bacon fat, chicken schmaltz with just chicken fat. All of those things are what I'm cooking with at home. The best pancakes I've ever had in my life, my wife greased the pan with bacon fat. Yeah, that worked. That really worked. That was really good pancakes. Yeah. That answer your question? Good. Other questions bubbling up. Some sweeteners to watch out for. So what a lot of these companies like to do is broadcast their name brand so that you don't realize what chemical you're getting with the sweetener. If you want to avoid aspartame, you would avoid the brands NutraSweet and Equal. If you want to avoid sucralose, you want to avoid Splenda. Saccharin is found in sweet and low. That's the pink packets. Then there's a sulfame potassium or a sulfame K. That's a junk sweetener. Then there's neotame and there's advantame. If you see that suffix TAME, like aspartame, as soon as you see TAME, that's a sweetener to avoid. Whatever words came before that, if it ends in TAME, time to find a different product if you want to avoid junk sweeteners. And then there's a list, it's called the Dirty Dozen. So the Dirty Dozen is a term used to describe the produce that is heavily sprayed with pesticides of various types. And I like to update the list of the Dirty Dozen. It's not a static list, it's ever changing. What I think, I'm not sure, but here's my theory, is that when certain produce ends up on the Dirty Dozen list, the farmers that are mass producing those foods don't want their harvest to be associated with that negative connotation. So they start to change how they produce it to get off the Dirty Dozen list. So every year I update the Dirty Dozen list because we will see some foods go onto it and some foods come off of it. For 2026, the list is strawberries, spinach, kale, collard greens, nectarines, apples, grapes, bell peppers, cherries, peaches, pears, celery, and tomato. For me, except for the tomatoes and the kale, I like eating all of those foods. So when I'm going to the store, if I'm deciding where am I going to spend my extra money to get organic, these are the ones. I'm only going to the apple orchard that's organic. It's is it Peck and Bushel or Bushel and Peck? Okay. They're about 30 minutes from us here in New Berlin. They're an organic apple orchard. That's the place I like to go for my apples. You have to pick them fresh. They're organic. It's a wonderful spot if you can go. But this list is what I'm using to make sure that I'm only getting organic when I'm buying these foods: strawberry, spinach, celery, etc. Because these are the most heavily pesticided foods. And we want to avoid those pesticides. Those are a toxin. Don't want to ingest them. A lot of people ask this. My grandparents never spoke about organic produce. And that's because the amount of pesticides used when your grandparents were shopping 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago was either non-existent or so dramatically less that it wasn't yet an issue. It's like if you walk through a crowd of people smoking cigarettes versus living with somebody who smokes in the house. You're exposed to tobacco smoke either way, but the exposure level is dramatically different. Questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I might not have any good answer.
Okay.
To choose between two evils.
Yes.
Because once in a while, not to eat, you just like want a soda. But obviously, water is always a choice. But if you had to choose between a regular soda and a diet soda, which one is better for your body?
Really good question. This one comes up pretty regularly. Am I going to do diet soda or am I going to do regular soda? I'm going to default to the regular soda. Now, my concern is there's corn syrup in the regular soda, most likely. And that corn was probably pesticided. Okay, just for the record. My body handles blood sugar changes really well. Part of that is because I'm really far from insulin resistance because I do resistance training 4 or 5 days a week. You get that. Compared to the neurological stress of those sweeteners, there's no amount of resistance training that can counter that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I'm going to go with the sugar because my body is going to handle that better. Now, the next person, it might be different. Some people who have dysregulated blood sugar, their glucose isn't good on their blood work, or an hour after they eat, they're really tired. These, blood sugar symptoms, they might fare better with the diet sodas.
Spindrift or carbonated water if you can.
Spindrift is a great option. Carbonated water, if you're just looking for a different thing texturally, the carbon dioxide bubbles aren't perfect for us when we're digesting, but it's still better than soda. And that's what we're looking at. It's always a scale. It's not just A or B. It's A to Z, and then where are we falling within that scale? Are we at L? Do we want to progress to T and just make it better? It's not perfect yet. It's not Z, but we're getting better. And then brands like Poppy or Olipop or Zevia, these are soda companies that are making relatively junk-free soda options. In our house, last summer, I brought home creamy root beer, Zevia creamy root beer, because they have 2 root beers. One of them's creamy. The other one's just a straight up, more spicy. And then I bought keto ice cream, vanilla ice cream, and we made brown cows, or root beer floats. Sorry, brown cows when you had chocolate. We didn't have chocolate. We made root beer floats. And that's still not perfect, okay? But it was about 80 less grams of sugar going in my kids compared to a standard root beer float. It was better. It was summer, trying to have some summer activities. I just don't want to poison my kids.
Yeah.
But Drew, didn't you have root beer floats when you were a kid? 100% did. But that was almost 40 years ago. And again, the ingredient list was different. High fructose corn syrup was not in the sodas back then. The ice cream didn't have high fructose corn syrup in it. They weren't using vegetable oil. They weren't doing things for the texture. They weren't doing fake things with the flavor. You would buy a company, and if it was vanilla ice cream, it actually had vanilla beans in it. That's why there were little black specks in the vanilla ice cream. Nowadays, when you buy a vanilla ice cream and it is straight white, I'm like, there is no actual vanilla in this product because vanilla beans are not white. They're dark, dark brown.
I know I mentioned to you at another time, but the Yuka or Yuka app,
Yeah.
UKA, I found that to be kind of helpful, or at least for a starting point.
Absolutely.
You can scan it in the store right there. You can even search things to get the premium thing.
Yep.
And it'll tell you excellent all the way down to bad.
Yeah. The Yucca app is really helpful for a lot of people. And just like a lot of the books that I read, I agree with about 80% of what that app says. For a jumping off point, I agree with it 100%. Because one of the most important things we can do, I want to break this down. It is 2 steps. Learn to read labels. Get into the habit of reading labels. You don't have to understand every word on it. I'm not asking you to understand the label yet. But I want you, when you pick up a product, to go, oh, here's the nutrition facts. Here's the ingredient list. Here's the designations if it's organic or cage-free. Here's the company's logo. I just want you to familiarize yourself with that. Once you get into the habit of reading these labels, then I want you to look for these keywords that are in the handout here. So just start with getting used to just turn it over real quick, look at it, or online, when they show you the picture, scroll to the photo that's the ingredient list, scroll to the photo that's the nutrition facts. Just get used to doing that. Just look at that. Once you get used to doing that, then you can say, okay, I want to learn to identify BHA, BVO, all these things, aspartame, whatever it is. Questions coming to mind? Okay, I'm going to point this out. This is our snack list. It's got all sorts of brands on the back. That whole thing is the brands we recommend. Yeah. A lot of my clients take photos of the front and back of this. They keep it in their phone. They take it as a favorite. So whether they're at the grocery store or they're traveling on vacation or they're visiting family or wherever they are, they can real quick pop open their phone, go to their favorite photos and go, Oh, hey, I see Good Culture cottage cheese is on this list. And I'm in Phoenix visiting family at the grocery store. But good news, they have Good Culture in this grocery store. Okay, I can buy this. Drew said I need to get my protein up. And even when I'm traveling, I need my protein. We can send that to you. Again, shoot us an email. That's what I got for you today. You're very welcome. Thanks for attending. Thanks for the questions. Our Zoomers are long gone by now. We missed them already. Everybody on YouTube after the fact, thank you for watching. Part 4 is coming up this Thursday, so it's just 5 to 6 days from now. Which toxin was that? Oh, home care. We're going to talk about cleaning your toilets and washing your windows and everything in between. See you for that one.